Welcome to Watt Corner Replay Analysis with Guido1212. We have an M53 55 Tier 10 battle where I'm going to show you how to counter battery with your artillery, as well as be somewhat effective for the rest of the battle. This is the beginning of the fight. I'll go ahead and let you watch it according to what I am looking at while I'm driving the tank. First thing I'm going to do is look over to the usual enemy artillery area. So I'm on a reload and I'm moving my SPG back somewhere to hide to get out of the way. And because I have the overall overhead view, I can go ahead and look at the usual places where enemy artillery shows up. And what I'm looking for is things to get knocked down, trees, fences, or any other kind of SA that there might be somebody there. I'm actually moving backwards while I'm doing this, because I know I'm just going back to the red line, so I'm going to keep on backing up. Eventually I will go take a look at the bush, and look at that right there. If you just noticed that, a tree just went down in that area right there. So now that I know there's somebody there, I'm going to go ahead and come back and look at what I'm doing with my tank, get into that bush, or at least behind it. That's a fairly obvious bush, so I'm going to have to make sure that I move when I fire, because if there's anybody else on the other side trying to counter battery, that's one of the very obvious spots. The good news for me though is that it helps. There's another tree down, so there's maybe two, maybe the same guy knocking trees down, so I know somebody's there. Now I'm going to sit here and look at this spot for a little long. In one of my articles I've discussed probably the best thing to do if you're going to counter battery is for the first shot, pre-aim into a spot where you know a tank is going to show up. If you take a look at the mini map, I'll pop it up. There's actually an object 140, and this is a pretty standard spot to see guys early on this map. Up here where the T10 is, that's a pretty standard spot to see you guys early on this map as well. Focusing in on either one of those spots, I prefer the south to help the mediums, is probably your best first shot idea. So take a look at where the enemy Arty is, maybe get some SA like I just did. Okay, noted, there's a guy there. Now shift your aim over here for that first shell. I'm not going to end up doing that because I'm really focusing on counter Arty, but I probably wasted a shot or two messing around with this guy. So we'll go back to run. And I'm just sitting here waiting to see this guy shoot. That's a pretty standard spot right about there where they will sit. Maybe back into the corner a little bit. And as you can see, this is taking a considerable amount of time, and I probably would have already had a shot and already be reloading against the 140. If I decided to shoot up into the A1, I'd probably already taken a shot up there as well, and that would be helping out my team. As you can see, there's a VK4502B down in the south moving forward. He's a big slow target, so again, I could be shooting at that guy. But as I am almost purely counter-arting here for the moment, I'm going to sit here and wait. And we'll see what happens. You can see that the south is getting fairly heavily engaged. I've already lost a tank and I've not fired, so that's not really a great deal for my team. Got a Leopard PTA, and there's a guy just shot right there. So you saw the white line go across the screen right about where I've got the aim point for my Arty, and I'm going to aim just behind where the line started, because the line is about a half an inch to a quarter of an inch ahead of the barrel for the enemy tank. And then of course with the splash on the Arty, let's see what happens here. I let it zoom in fully, I fire, and immediately I start moving. And look at that. If you look on the top right, just above the mini map, you saw that I got a kill on the SU-14-2. He's only shot one shot and he's out of the game. So not to belabor the point, but I probably had time to go ahead and shoot at least one shot into the south, maybe one to the north if that's what I decided, and then get back and no kidding find this guy. But now that I've shot and killed him, you can see I immediately move because I don't want to get countered. And I'm going to dive down here into this low area and set up. Now I'm on a reload, so during the reload, go look where you think the enemy Arty is going to be. I've already killed one in there, but because I saw two trees down, I'm sort of thinking, maybe there's another guy in there. Could have been the same guy knocking down multiple trees. But you can see that my reload timer is moving up towards around the 10 to 15 second. We'll pause it here. If you're going to switch back and forth between counter battery and helping your tanks, somewhere around 10 to 15, I prefer about 15 seconds out. For the bigger Arty, like the 53, 55, and call it anything from tier 6 or so up. About 10 to 15 seconds, you want to move over to where you're going to help the tanks so that you've got time to zoom in while the rest of your timer is timing out. So you're more or less ready to shoot just as you are reloaded. If you wait till you're reloaded while you're staring for the counter arty, then you may have a longer wait, and that just kind of optimizes the timing. See what I do here. I'm already letting it go by. Once again, I'm more or less trying to do counter arty. So I'm going to switch my thought process just about this point. I see what's going on in the south. I got a T-34 sitting there, and I decide, all right, let's do what I'm supposed to be doing and start helping these tanks. Now what I've done right there is I've just switched to the battle assistant and aim assist mod, whatever you want to call it, for the Arty, that gives you kind of this 3D view staring down the trajectory or close to the trajectory of your shell. And that's going to help me in this instance because I'm not exactly sure what part of the elevation this T-34 is on. And you'll see I zoom in, and I am reloaded even though it doesn't show it on the left based on the replay. Now he just got tracked, if you notice, and that's a good thing for Arty. I've got a big target, he's tracked, he doesn't seem to be fixing it immediately. That means he's stationary. That gives me some time to continue to zoom in, and I'm going to let that thing zoom all the way in, and I got him. So there goes Oddball, he's been killed, and notice I go directly back to the view of my own tank, and I start moving so I don't get countered. Because I was out in the open, this time I'm going to zoom right back in here into the bushes, and then I'm going right back to my counter arty because I'm on a reload, and now I'm looking for the enemy artillery again. Taking a look at the battle right now, it's more or less even. We've got our team engaged down in the south with a couple mediums and a heavy. There's quite a few enemy up in the north, which I'm going to ignore for the moment while we work on the south. Plus I'm doing my counter artillery. I'm on a reload, so I don't really need to be looking anywhere else. And as I start to approach, what I did right there, I don't know if you noticed this, but the 53, 55 has a semi-turret. That's the limits of its azimuth right there. The other one is off the map, on the east side of the map right there, but I actually just shifted my turret so that when I decide to go from looking down here in the southwest over to the southeast, I won't have as much of a dispersion problem. It'll be less. It'll still be an issue, but it won't be as bad. All right, there we go. And once again, I go to the battle assistant, which will work out a little better. I really had hoped that that would have tracked him. Now I'm reloaded, and I'm sort of waiting. What I think he might do is go forward, but he actually kind of goes off the back edge of this, and this is a tough shot. I take that shot, and I think I miss. I don't hear anything on the announcements, and he doesn't die. But immediately, I move, I go back to overhead view, and I start looking for enemy artillery during my reload. Keeping an eye on the south. Last thing I wanted to have happen down in the south is for them to break through. It doesn't look like they're going to. I think we're pretty handily winning that, and there goes the 4502B, which confirms my suspicions, and it looks pretty good. Now I'm sort of watching the north. I may have to go help them. The M4190GF could be an issue, and now I'm just going to go ahead and help them clean up in the south a little bit. I mentioned the GF because he's sort of trolling around the middle, and if he sneaks through there, I could be in trouble. This guy is a splash kill. I'm just waiting for him to make an obvious move. There, he's moving forward, and I'll just fire that thing off. And I end up splashing him. And I move just a little bit. One of the reasons I'm not moving a lot now, although I am moving each time, is I have not noticed any counter artillery coming in at me. So they don't seem interested in trying to counter me. That doesn't mean I want to stay in one space, but I maybe don't need to move as much. Just give a little cursory move. And now I'm going to go ahead. Now, what I've done here is I have changed the spot I'm looking for their artillery in. I've spent some time down here in the very southwest corner. There doesn't seem to be anyone else there, only the Su-14. And now I'm going to go ahead and look in this ravine, which is the second most obvious point on this map for the west spawn. More than likely, there's at least one, maybe two, down in that spot right there. And I want to go ahead and try to find them. One other thing to think about is once you kill one of them with a counter, if the other two are decent, they're probably moving. Both those guys are green players. More than likely, they're going to be moving. And there's a tracer right there, so I'm going to move it over to where he was. This is going to take a while to reload. This is not ideal. I mean, I know where he fired, but if he's moving, he'll be long gone by the time I can pickle off this shot. Sometimes even when they are moving, if you're already reloaded and you get right to where you see the shot, because SPGs are so slow, you can hit them even as they're moving. See, nothing happens right there. And we're winning by a long way. So I kind of abandoned the helping of the tanks part, and I'm really just hunting down the artillery. Otherwise, I should probably be zooming in to the north, or maybe start looking for that T-30. There's another shot right there. So I know that he's in there. I'm just waiting for the reload now. That makes me think they're moving. I'm actually going to hold this shot now. I'm just going to wait for him to fire again. It also makes me think maybe there's two. There's that T-30. I'm going to kind of ignore him. If you're really thinking about maxing out damage, switch over to him immediately and try to get that shot off, kill him off, and then come back to the artillery. But again, this is a counter, and it should show up here pretty soon. Things would change if you were losing. You'd want to get your gun in the game and start helping killing tanks, but since we're winning so handily, I can just hunt these guys. Will happen any moment. Patience, there it is. So I'll fire. Now I immediately move and fire it, and I get out of the way. And there you go. The 53-55 is dead. And I fired that fast because I was pretty sure they were moving. So he may have even been backing up or going forward. And now we're down to the 140 and the 261. Now the 140 is fighting a heavy and a Yag Tiger up north and a TBP. I don't really expect him to live very long, but you'll find out that it turns out he does. Notice the 121, as I was watching this, the 121 actually moved through the southwest right here and proved that the other Arty is not there. So I'm really confident he's in here somewhere. Pretty soon this 121 is going to light him because he's going to get close enough and be able to see down into that hole. And that's what I'm counting on right now. I'm just watching that one, and there he is. So there's the 261. Reloaded, fired, the 121 hit him, and now I take him out for those last 14%. And notice that 140 is still alive. In fact, he's killed those two guys, and I think, wow, that's not good. So I need to go ahead and get out of the open because I've been kind of lazy with the movement late game based on how well we're winning. And I'm going to dive down behind this bush right here. Now, I know that 140 is trolling around up there, which you'll find about good players, and this guy, Nearbush, is pretty good. Blue on XVM. Is when they start to lose a game like this towards the end game, they will often just push into the Arty and try to get a little bit more damage, kill a couple Artys, make themselves feel better about the game. I know I do that. I'm going to take a bit of a chancy shot right there. It's kind of behind him, I'd say, based on time of flight. I can afford that. Why? Because we're winning so well. But then I notice, you know what? I think he actually is coming for the Arty based on what I just talked about earlier. If I was him, that's what I'd be doing. And he's going to come right up that A line on the other side of that little road, which moves along this area right here. So he's going to come right through here, back behind our cap, and start looking for us. So I'm going to run away bravely. And there he is, going exactly where I thought he would. I'm going to grab this little tiny bush right here, which turns out that I'm too fat for, but give me a little bit of camo maybe. I'm reloaded, and I'm going to come in here and then zoom in and wait for this guy to come. So initially what I do is I go to God view, overhead view, and I move my view all the way up here to the northeast corner. But notice that my view range is actually here, down here on the blue line. So I can't actually see up there. Having my aim point there isn't going to help me. I'm going to realize that pretty quickly as I'm looking at it. And I'll just pull back. So the earliest I'm going to see him is about right there. Probably want to get a little bit inside of that. There we go. And now and there you go. There he is. He shows up basically right where that blue line was. I'm going to quickly aim. More than likely he sees me. In fact, it's going to prove it here that he does see me. Whack and whack. So he hits me on the run with an HE shell, and I end up blowing him up. The damage total shows 536. As I remember, it was more like a 2100, maybe 2400 damage game. I end up with 6 kills, picking off some near deads, killing 3 Arty, and ends up being a pretty decent game. I probably could have added to that total and maybe helped the team win faster if I'd have done the things and the techniques I talked about, where I was a little bit more interested in shooting at the tanks and then swapping over to the enemy artillery. But that is a great example of how to do some of these personal missions where you've got to kill enemy artillery, or if you just get sick of being nuked by artillery and feel like you want to go ahead and counter them. There you have it. That's how you do it. Catch you next time.